And that's because the glass bricks were designed in a way that they were basically giving support to the building. It's in a sad state, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And all those metal frame structures that are inside of the building, all made out of railroad rail.
Really?
Yep. I mean, look at the beams on the end.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is where those signals are sitting right there. The signals are going to be stood up, and they're each going to be facing a different way, I believe, or both the same way or something. And there's going to be a diesel locomotive, one of the original Port Huron and Detroit diesels, sitting right there coupled up to the booth.
Really?
Yep.
Cool.
I wonder why they don't do any excursions on this railroad if they...
It's because it's CSX. CSX isn't the best when it comes to excursions. However, they are talking about the idea.
So they're thinking about excursions?
They're talking about it. They want to. However, one thing that you might want to know is that this line has been under talks about being sold to CN.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I don't want it to become CN. I want it to stay CSX because pretty much basically every railroad in our area is CN.
I know. So CN is actually the most common railroad in the entire state.
Yeah, CN is the state railroad.
What happened?
Expansion and contraction.
Oh boy. This is the inside of the PH&D booth number 52.
Oh, cool.
We also got the original locomotive that's assigned to this car.
Really?
It's
So they're
LQS2.
thinking about doing
That's the one
excursions
that's
through
coming.
here?
So
They
yeah,
want to.
that's what's so rare about it. We got the original assigned car and the original locomotive.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Is it a CSX or the
No.
Historical Society
It's-
that wants to?
What?
The
Do the
Historical
excursions.
Society. The Historical Society wants
Yeah,
to do
this-
excursions.
Yeah.
Yeah, that CSX though is problematic. We can't get that roundhouse because they refuse to sell it to us.
Really?
Yeah.
And the two main reasons is liability and ground contamination. Because that roundhouse goes back to like 1918. And then it burnt, and if you look on the building, on the actual structure, you can actually see the two different eras from the new and old roundhouse.
That roundhouse was also hit by the famous 1953 Port Huron tornado.
Really?
Yes, the entire roof was lifted off.
There was a Port Huron tornado.
Yep, the famous Port Huron tornado in 1953.
Yee.
I'm sorry.
The main office has 3 additions.
So that's how it became
Yes,
abandoned. So that's how it...
No, that wasn't how it became abandoned.
They just decided to not use it.
No, they still used it. They repaired it. That was in 53. The Port Huron in Detroit existed until 1982, when it was finally bought by the Chesapeake in Ohio under the name Chessie System.
Sam?
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, 84. Getting my dates mixed up, but yeah, you're right. 84 because 87 was when it became CSX. But yeah, this existed in operation until 1984. That's when it was finally abandoned.
No, it was sold out because of family issues.
So,
That's what happened.
yeah. 2 signals here are searchlight signals from West Tappan, which is the western edge of the Port Huron area. The signal on the left is actually a steam era signal. The one on the right is actually newer, stemming from the early 1990s. But the railroad was originally supposed to get just one of them, and they were very lucky to get both of them.
This building here is 3 additions. The original addition is in the middle. That would have been in 1918. It was built by the Detroit Bay City Western Port Huron Southern.
Wow.
Now, then the back half is 1926.
Oh,
So
really?
the middle part, if you go on the back side, you'll see what they call the original Zagemeyer block that was famous to the Handy Brothers.
Oh.
The Handy brothers were the ones that were involved with this. Handy brothers worked. Well, the Handy brothers were from Bay City, Michigan, and they established a railroad by the name of the Detroit Bay City and Western. That railroad was completed from Bay City to Port Huron in 1918, and it existed until 1925, and that's because of the Titanic.
Wait a minute.
The original plan was that the Handy brothers wanted to build a rail line extending from Detroit all the way to Mackinac City. It originally included that railroad, the Port Huron Southern, which later became the Port Huron and Detroit, and the Detroit and Mackinac. They were going to work with the Grand Trunk Railway at that time. Unfortunately, the president of the Grand Trunk Railway at the time died when the Titanic sank.
Wow.
When the Handy brothers went to go talk to the railroad, not realizing that the president had died in the Titanic sinking, the people and management at Grand Trunk said, "We don't know anything about you, so we don't want to work with you."
Wow.
The plan shriveled up and died.
Wow.
1922, the DBC&W goes into receivership. And then in 1925, a person named Mr. Gray, his name was Bob Gray. He had a big firm out of Chicago and bought the entire DBC&W. I think what was the sum, like $25,000 or something like that. I mean, that's a lot of money back then.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
And then through the years, the line was abandoned in segments. The first segment was from Fargo to Port Huron. So from Fargo to Port Huron, it was cut. And also in that same year, from Bay City to a little town called Akron was abandoned. The reason for that, the western end game bans was washout in a little area called Quanticosi, up there on the very bottom of Saginaw Bay. The line was formed as Detroit Carroll Sandusky. And there's the line was, like I said, was abandoned, like it was cut back from, what was it, from 1932 from Fargo to Roseburg, and then I would have to say 40 something.
I think it was 48.
48 was from
Yeah.
Peck to Sandusky was one of the last abandonments. Not until 53, the railroad was entirely steam, had this little massive collection of steam engines from all different eras.
Including a
was a,
Green Bay and
440
Western
they had.
Associated.
Wow.
They had a little American up there. I got pictures of it. I didn't bring them, but
Yeah.
I got tons of pictures of this little line.
Yeah.
You couldn't tell where the tracks were, so overgrown.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
And it was abandoned in 1953.
Yeah.
And
How much train
there's
ticket?
really, the only thing left of the Handy Brothers is from here south. Is all this left of the Handy Brothers line.
The
But then,
original
yeah.
Handy Brothers line.
And
As
there's
well as
these structures, and then in the town of Fargo, the only depot that exists is still up there on the north side of town. But this one, the PH&D though, I mean, this building, it's been years of restoration work, and it's,
It's still not finished.
no, it isn't, but the outcome is just amazing. All the work we've done to it.
Yep.
And right now, though, we got these huge projects coming up, moving our locomotive and laying track and stuff. That'd be happening this fall. I'm not sure on a date yet.
But, yeah, we're going to extend the track from the end of the caboose out to the end of the sidewalk. We're gonna
go up to that stump, up to that road.
Yep.
And it
Basically
comes
from
out
the
to be
stump
about
to the road.
146 foot.
Wow.
We're gonna put the signals, have them standing up. Actually, right where I'm standing, we're gonna be having the locomotive. Which number is it?
52.
Number 52, which is one of the two original diesel locomotives that dieselized the Port Huron and Detroit.
They have 4. They have
But it
4
was-
Elcos. They're
yes.
all S units.
But they were bought the first two in 45, was it?
Somewhere right.
I think yeah, it was 1945. They bought their first two Alco S1 diesels. numbers 51 and 52, and that completely dieselized the railroad, which at the time was operating with a group of 060 steam locomotives, similar to the 203 down in Marysville. And they operated with that. They started getting more business, needed more powerful locomotives, so they bought another locomotive from Alco, a S4, which later became number 60, and they sold off the 51.
Now, the other caboose is down in Indiana, painted in the red and white scheme. This scheme is the pre-1984 paint scheme
Okay.
of the railroad, and it's going to match what the locomotive.
And then every once in a while, you'll get a coal train which heads down to the St. Clair power plant. And those can get up to about 120 cars at most. But
Comes
with
in about once a week.
with the recent power plant fire down in East China, and the plan for Detroit Thomas Edison to retire all of its coal-powered power plants by the end of 2020 to 2023, all the coal trains through here are going to be gone.
Which right there.
Oh,
Is
yeah.
that CSX or CN?
That's CSX.
Yeah.
Everything on this side of that ditch in the weeds is CSX. Everything on that side is
But
Canadian
how this
National.
was, this line here, there was another track right next to here, and I remember it
Are we gonna
about
see
a few
the
years ago.
Is CSX coming this way?
He's just down there switching cars
He's
right
switching
now.
cars to get ready to head south.
Yep.
They always have the train that heads south.
Because
every
see
night.
here you had two tracks. These two tracks were PH&D. Now the PH&D ends up where, see where those bushes are down there.
About where the stop sign.
Yeah,
a little past
where
the stop
that
sign.
was the end of the PH&D trackage. And they used to parallel railways. They went across Michigan and parallel down towards Range Road there. They had a double track down in there too. This rail is original PH&D rail. This stuff, it's really light. And
And you can tell
I
because
think
of
it
how
was
short
85 pound.
Wow.
That's 85 pound rail. That's what the whole railroad was. But when they started getting the coal trains, that's when they upgraded to head south.
Wonder if the
You can tell the difference even by standing here. You look at the rail, you see how short it is,
Yeah.
and then you just look straight over there, look at the track in the Y,
That's
in between the
136.
caboose and the building, and you can see, even from this distance, that is a lot thicker than this rail right here.
Now, this middle track is the Pure Maquette main. That was the main line for the Pure Maquette that goes down to
Far
the boat
track.
yard.
I wonder if
Okay.
And then here's a
Okay.
very interesting thing. If you guys like the history, directly across from where I'm standing on this side of that pole of that CB was where the original yard office for the Grand Trunk was, where my dad would have worked out of. And right behind it would have been where the car shops are,
The Grand
which
Trunk
have now completely been demolished.
the Grand
The
Trunk
only
Western.
steam-related artifact that's left in Port Huron, if the trains weren't here, would be over there. There's a sanding tower on the Grand Trunk side in the yard. And that's the only thing left that's steam in Port Huron.
Wow.
outside of the
Of the
Orig-
whole engine facilities and
Right.
car shops, there's
Yeah.
nothing left. Through the
That's
years,
awful.
it's been demolished. The coaling tower was down there. You had the Pure Maquette roundhouse and coaling tower on the other side of 16th Street. That was there for the longest time. All
Until
of it's been
yeah.
imploded and tore down.
It was actually the
There was,
Paramark.
there was actually 4 roundhouses in Port Huron.
Yeah.
You had the Port Huron Northwestern, that was at the end of Court Street on the river.
what does that
You had
mean
the-
anyways?
What?
What?
To implode?
Demolish, explode,
Yeah.
or what we know as building demolition.
Like
Then-
kind of just having a record.
Right. And then over, then back there you had the Pure Maquette facilities. You had the
There they go,
PH&D.
inspecting the train.
And then over here was Grand Trunk's roundhouse. That was the largest of them all. It was
Wow.
exactly 38 stalls.
Wow, that's cool.
And almost complete circle roundhouse like Duran.
Really?
Almost complete.
And now it's really hard to get a picture of it. I have only seen maybe 3 pictures of the roundhouse.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's I got tons of old pictures from back in the 80s when stuff was still here. I mean, it's not the way it used to be. But sometimes you'll see, like if you really want to see Grand Trunk, go up on the old, what they call it, paper spur. That's all they run are GTW Jeeps.
And that was the original main of the original line that went from Port Huron to Detroit, which is now the Canadian National Mount Clemens subdivision, and was also the line that 12-year-old Thomas Edison got his very first job.
Which Christopher did a report on.
Well, that
Not the
scrap that's sitting there on the...
Oh yeah,
The-
that's
That's
exactly.
where Mighty Mo stood.
That was the Marysville power plant owned by DTE.
What
That
happened to it?
They imploded it.
Yes, I actually have the video of it at home. That was actually the power plant that the 203 down in Marysville worked at. And it worked there until
50s, early 50s.
about 1953 or sometime around then, when it was driven from the Marysville power plant straight down the train tracks. It was put on a switch, switched back into the Marysville Park under steam. Then they put out the fire, cleaned out the ash pin, emptied the boiler, cut the track off, and
Actually,
left it there.
That engine
Wow.
was put away wet.
Oh, it was?
Yes. It
They
was-
left the water in the boiler.
Yes.
Okay.
And there's still some there's only 2 DTE engines. There's the 203 and there's the 202.
The 202 is now down in Grand Rapids, Ohio.
That one has Port Huron ties too.
Yes, it does.
But it was mostly down in Trenton.
Yeah. The 202 did work under steam for a while. It was owned by the Toledo, Lake Erie, and Western, and was used for excursion services on their ex-nickel plate line through Grand Rapids. However, that operation has since been abandoned and the steam locomotive does not run. It's now sitting in storage. Out in the open in the elements.
The roundhouse right now is CSX is not willing to sell the property because of liability and ground contamination. But with the recent robbery of the glass blocks, the 1926 glass blocks of the east and south walls of the roundhouse is now structurally impaired. What is now happening is on the far corner, if we'll go in the front, you'll see the wall, the corner pulling away from itself.
Oh.
So what this leaves us is we have now made another move on it. I mean, there's been a few calls made again. but it's now or never to save it. Because it's getting to where it's funny because 12 years ago this building was never in this shape. They had a good roof on it and everything. There was a fire in it because of some homeless people, and it did quite a bit of damage to her. And now it's just sitting here and the whole roof's caving in.
Right.
And the only thing that's really holding it up is Bill Boyd's track rafters. They actually use, if you look in the top of the roof, you'll see all these rails going every which way. And that's what they use, and that's what's holding that building strong.
Wow.
He was a heck of a craftsman, and a heck of a builder, and a heck of a designer. And that's why this roundhouse is still around. And this makes this roundhouse with the other, I'm thinking there's like another 9 of them left in Michigan. There's one in Niles and stuff. There's been a few of them tore down, like the one up in Tawas, the old D&M shops. That was a loss because Lake State sold the property to Walmart, and Walmart leveled the buildings. And they were 1888 buildings.
Wow.
Beautiful brick roundhouse and original shops were demolished. And inside were British coaches. I got some pictures of them taking stuff out. It was quite interesting.
Wow.
So we really want to save this roundhouse, but as it looks as right now, if we did get it, this is just my theory, is the old section on the back side, it will be demolished because it's so far gone. The first 4 stalls here are the ones that we're going to have to save. And then after a while, we would have to dismantle the building on the old part and then rebuild it is what would have to be done. We're talking just to get the property, restore it, and all that, we're talking millions. You see the big 4 windows, how they don't have, that's where the glass block was. Someone went in there, ripped them out and stole the glass. And also along the south wall here too. And if you look in the corner, you can see from the window, right along the window edge, all the way down to the bottom, is pulling away from the building. And because those windows to that building were structural. So that's why it has to be saved now. Because now it's gotten to where it's so far gone, something needs to be done.